A discussion of ground reaction forces coming to you right after this. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's good to be with you today. We're going to talk about ground reaction forces. Some things I've learned this year through some biomechanics classes that I was finally able to take, and try to sort out if there's perhaps some confusion on what all this ground reaction forces terminology means. We're going to define the phrase. We're going to talk about the three types of ground reaction forces and maybe give you a little example of what it would look like if we couldn't use ground reaction forces. Okay? So first of all, what does it mean? Sounds like a fancy phrase. Ground reaction forces just means how you use your feet to push against the ground to create force. The only way to move a golf club is to apply a force to it. If I don't apply any force to it, it won't move. I can apply force in one way with just hands or hands and arms. And that could apply a certain amount of force to the club and create a certain amount of speed, but you can probably realize that wouldn't be a great deal of speed. Also, thankfully, we can use the ground to create force, which creates the body motion, which creates more speed into the club. So that idea, that's what ground reaction forces means, how you use your feet to push against the ground. There's three different types, which was interesting to me. I kind of put the ground reaction forces debate or study kind of on the shelf for a while, because when it first came out, all I heard was that you're supposed to push up against the ground. And so my thought was like, well, if I take a high handicap golfer and tell him to, all right, on the downswing, I want you to push up against the ground, and he's already coming out of posture, and he's already not making very good rotation to the ball, and he's already pretty much not consistent with his contact. Maybe he hits it fat and thin and all over the place. I was like, that doesn't sound like a good idea. But once I was able to study a little bit more, there's actually more than just vertical, okay? So it's very simple when you think about it. If I want to use my feet against the ground, I can use a side-to-side or a lateral motion. I can create rotational motion, and I can also create vertical motion. So those are the three different types. Interesting was in their study with their force plates that they've discovered that a lot of the long hitters on tour, men and women, use different combinations of those three forces, but they apply them, at least 99% of the people they captured apply them all in the same order. So the example, like a Gary Woodland, from my memory, uses a pretty strong amount of lateral force in his downswing, some amount of rotation, and a little, very small amount of vertical. Whereas if you look at like a Justin Thomas, not much lateral, great deal of rotation, and a great deal of vertical. Both players hit it plenty far, just different combinations. So now let's take a break for a second. I'm going to come back with a chair and show you what it would look like if I couldn't use the ground. I'm going to try to hold my feet and not let them touch the ground. And if I can get stable here, if I make a backswing, you can see that my body turns the opposite direction that I'm trying to swing the club in. And I've got to really be stable here. So if I try to swing that way, you see my body turns the opposite way. So without using the ground, it becomes very difficult for me to coordinate and create a lot of speed. And if you've seen Chris Como's video where he actually went off a very high diving platform and jumped and tried to make a swing, the same thing happened. He swung his arms that way, his body twisted that way. So the ground is your friend, and there's different combinations we can use. I think the most important thing, once we kind of figure out what all this means, is to look at what the good players do as far as timing and when they apply these forces, okay? So basically, when they get to the top of their swing, the first force they're going to use is lateral, and the second force they're going to apply is rotational, and then the third is vertical. Again, different combinations for different players. in that thought, there's some basic timing to this. So when we get to the top, we're going to go some amount of lateral, and that's going to occur for some players near the top, even before they transition, or in transition to the point where the left arm gets about parallel to the floor. That's when it's going to peak, and then it's going to slow down. Okay, so they're not like continuously, obviously pushing towards the target, but that's the peak window. The second peak for the rotational, after this point, the rotation really starts to fire fast, and it will start to slow down approximately when the left arm or lead arm is about 45 degrees to the floor. Doesn't mean it's stopping, just means that's the hardest burst, okay? And then from there, that's when some amount of vertical is going to be applied. So from left arm 45 to impact and into the follow through. So that's a little primer on ground reaction forces. Hope you enjoyed it. Please click the like button. Thanks for watching.